Good morning and God bless you. I hope that you sixth graders are having a beautiful week. Um, I actually am recording this video a little bit early this week. I get to see you guys this afternoon, so you will have already met, and we will have already met when we had this video, but I know that I have a really long meeting tomorrow, so I wanted to make sure that I got this to you as quickly as I could. Last week, we had the opportunity to kind of spend some time figuring out who God is. And we got into this really confusing idea called the Trinity, right? Where we talked about how God is three different persons, that God is Father, God is Son, and God is Holy Spirit. And yet, even though God is three different persons, how God is actually just one God. And you might remember that was a bit confusing to kind of figure out. And you know what? It's going to stay confusing. I can't unconfuse it, I'm afraid. Some things, especially when we're talking about God, just are hard enough to where we will never really fully understand it, and that's okay. But this week, we're going to talk about some things that I think we can understand and that I think you're really going to enjoy. This week, we get to talk about the angels. Think for a minute. When you think about an angel, what pops in your head? I mean, what is it that you imagine when you think of an angel? I want you to pause for just a minute and just write out for me. When you think of angels, what kind of things pop in your head? Maybe it's descriptions, maybe it's things they do. I don't know. Why don't you tell me? I'm looking forward to seeing your responses on that one. We have so many different ideas of what angels are, but most of the time, when we're talking and thinking about angels, usually we imagine something that's kind of like a person, but has wings, right? Kind of like a person, but has wings. I wonder if I have a picture of an angel that might work for that. I'm not seeing any right here in front of me. No. All right. So maybe I can find a picture. I'll find a picture online and see if I can put it up here. But we see this. Remember these ideas of angels as kind of being like people, but with wings, right? Like we imagine these really, really beautiful people, but they have wings. And sometimes we assign a sex to an angel, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we make them look like beautiful women or young boys, and sometimes we don't, and they kind of look like androgynous. That's a word that basically means not really a boy, not really a girl. And because we use these pictures, we can sometimes make the mistake of thinking that that's what angels are, that they're like a special breed of people that live in heaven with wings. But let's spend a moment and see if we can't really understand just a little bit more about what these angels are. Let me start at the beginning. We call God the creator of heaven and earth. That he created heaven and he created earth. Well, we often talk about the creating earth because that's where we're at. But there's also the fact that God created heaven. And that heaven, too, comes from nothing, from God's almighty power, right? That God just chose to make it be. So, in creating everything, God made two kinds of things that are bigger and more important than all of the other things. Two kinds of things that were so special that God has a special kind of love for them, right? Because they are most like himself of all of the things that he's created. What are these two things? Well, one of those two things is you and me. That we persons, we humans, we are one of God's chief creations, one of his most important creations. But there's another, and that's these angels. Angels, too, are one of God's most important creations. Angels are created spirits. Now, we have a spirit, right? But angels are just spirit. In other words, angels have no bodies. Now they can understand and they can make choices, right? They can think, they have intellect, and they can make decisions, they can do good things or bad things, right? Just like we can. But they've got no body. So why do we always draw their bodies with pictures of people with wings? Because we have bodies. That's why we draw them that way. And we're so used to persons having bodies that we can't really think of how to express or how to share something that doesn't have a body, right? So what we do is we draw pictures of them so that we can kind of understand them. Does that make sense? Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes an angel can pretend to have a body and can show us a body, and we can see that has happened before. But that's them kind of trying to talk to us in a way that we can understand. Angels themselves don't have bodies. They don't have flesh. They don't have moms and dads. They don't have a whole. They don't eat food. They don't go to the bathroom or take a shower. All of those body things, those are just human things. Angels don't have any of those things. But what angels do have is a mind, and a very sharp mind, a very, very, very intelligent mind. And the other thing they have is they have the ability to choose. They are free, just like you and me. They can do good things, they can do bad things, they can love, they can hate, they have opinions. They can do all of the same things that with our minds, they can do with their minds. But that doesn't mean that their minds are the same as ours. In fact, they're actually quite different from ours. When God created the angels, he gave them great wisdom, great power, and great holiness. So they're wise in that they know the nature of a thing. They really understand a thing in a way that you and I can't. They're very powerful. They can do anything that God wills them to do. They are literally the powers of the universe. And they're also very holy. They're also made to be like this really powerful goodness, right? So when we're looking at them, men, that's you and me, humans, we have a soul and we have a body. And angels have a spirit but no body. So the human mind, the way we learn things, is we learn things through experiencing things. Like, for example, how do I learn how to ride a bike? Well, my mom or my dad would put me on the bike, and they would kind of teach me how to do it, and I would have to learn to balance, and then I'd have to learn where my feet go and where my hands go, and then I'd have to try it out, and I'd have to have the whole experience of learning to ride the bike. That's not how angels learn at all. Humans learn through experience. Angels are given knowledge of things completely by God. So when they know something, they know everything about the thing, right? So if they know about bikes, they know bikes inside out. They know every kind of bike that has ever existed or ever will exist. They know why it's a bike. They know what makes bikes bikes. They know everything you can know about a bike. Just by them knowing about bikes, they know the whole thing. So they don't have to study like you and I do. They don't have to learn like you and I do. They just know. It's one of the great benefits of being an angel is there's no such thing as angel school because they don't have to learn like that. They just immediately know. God grants them knowledge and they have the whole bit of knowledge instantly. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't choose, because they can. But they do, their experience is different from ours. Ours, we get in slow little bits of time. Angels learn everything at once, right? So all of these angels were called to be the powers of God. They're called to be the creatures that run the universe, for lack of a better word. And but God still wants them to be free, like you and me, like to be able to make choices and to love each other and to love Him. So He made them free. But there's a problem when you make something free. The problem is, if you have freedom, you can use that freedom badly. For example, I could say, to my daughter, you are free to clean your room or to not clean your room. Well, what do I want her to do? I want her to clean her room. But I also want her to be free and have a choice. And that's more important than whether or not she cleans her room. And if she doesn't clean her room, she didn't do what I wanted her to do. Right? But I did give her the freedom to do that. And the angels did the same thing. They were given freedom to love or to hate. And many of the angels, some of them decided to hate instead of to love. This is a terrible sadness. I'd like to read you a little bit about the moment this happened from the Bible. And there was a battle in heaven. Michael and his angels battled with the dragon, that was the devil. And the dragon fought, and his angels. A lot of the angels followed the dragon. And they did not prevail, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And that great dragon was cast down, the ancient serpent, he who is called the devil and Satan, who leads astray the whole world. And he was cast down to the earth, and with him the angels were cast down. So, sadly, many of the angels, a lot of them, decided that they didn't want to love. They didn't want to be a part of God's plan. They wanted their own thing. They wanted nothing to do with it. And these angels that decided to become evil, we call them devils or demons, or we have lots of words for them. But they're great intellects that have no love for mankind, no love for anything. They're just full of hate and malice, which is very sad, but it's true. And because they're full of hate and malice, they want other people to be full of hate and malice. And so you'll see you'll hear stories in Scripture about them tempting people to be hateful and to hurtful and to try and do bad things. Don't get me wrong, we all have our choices. We can do good things, we can listen or not. But when we hear a voice in the back of our head saying, hey, don't you want to do this bad thing? It's never a good voice. It's never a good voice. Sometimes we picture these bad angels with really gross images, horns and tails, but they're just like the other angels. They don't have bodies either. So there's nothing that's going to there's no physical thing to be frightened of. Rather, the thing that you should be frightened of is them trying to tempt you into doing evil things, right? Tempt you into doing things that you shouldn't be doing, like disobeying your parents or hurting your friends or speaking behind somebody's back. These are the kind of things that are far worse than any gross image or movie that we could ever imagine. Let's talk a little bit about the good angels. What happened to the angels that remained faithful to God, the good ones like Michael and Raphael and Gabriel? Well, they entered into the eternal happiness of heaven, and they see God face to face. They're called good angels. What do they do? I mean, if you're an angel in heaven, what's your job? What do you do? Well, they do a lot of things. But the most important thing they do is they see God, they know God, and they love God. The same thing that you and I are called to do. They do a lot of work, right? But that work is all happiness and joy. For example, sometimes they act as messengers. Sometimes they do things that God wants done in the world. There's all sorts of things that angels are doing nonstop. And when we die and we really start to see how much work the angels were doing all the time, I think we're all going to be pretty darn surprised. But the good angels also help us, and they help us in some really important ways. The good angels help us by praying for us, by talking to God about us, and saying, and by sharing our life with Him, by acting as messengers. They will sometimes give us messages in our heart and in our emotions and in the way we're feeling. They'll talk to us, right? They also serve as our guardian angels. Many of the angels are chosen to protect us in a special way. Now, this is really quite amazing if you really think about it. That there is something so big and huge and powerfully intellectual, so deeply connected to God, so powerful, that's watching over you and me all the time, that we are so protected and so safe. And all we've got to do is be thankful for that, right? How do our guardian angels help us? Well, the number one way they help us is by praying for us, just as we should be praying for all of our brothers and sisters. They protect us from harm. But the most important thing that they do that you and I could probably see, the things that you and I have experienced, is when we feel inspired to do good. When we see something and we know we want to do the good thing, chances are that's an angel whispering in our ear, right? Whenever in your heart you hear yourself wanting to do something good, you can be pretty sure that there's an angel involved, right? Well, what about the bad angels? What happens with them? Well, the angels that were bad, they don't stay in heaven. They're cast into a place that we call hell, right? And these we call them bad angels, or we call them devils. And the chief way that they try to hurt us is by the chief involvement they have with us is they try to hurt us. And the way they're trying to hurt us is by getting us to do evil things, right? By trying to talk us into or tempting us to do things that we know we shouldn't do. For example, let's say that you know that you're not supposed to eat some particular treat at the house until a certain time, and you feel like you really want to, and you just almost hear a voice in your head. Nobody will notice. It won't be a big deal. Just go ahead and take what you want. That sounds like a devil to me, right? We know that when we hear those voices, when we hear those thoughts going through our mind, when we're tempted to do something dark, something wrong, something evil, something that will hurt someone else, or something that we know we're not supposed to do, that's the work of the bad angels. All right? So I don't want you to be scared of bad angels, because there's no reason to be frightened. There's only because you're the one with all the power. You can choose to not do the thing that they're calling you to do. And you can beat them every time because you have all the power of the good angels protecting you, right? So there's nothing to be afraid of from bad angels, nothing. But we should be wary and make sure that we're listening to the voice of our good angels and not our bad angels, or not the bad angels that are around us. Do all temptations come from bad angels? Well, no. Some of the temptations we have come from our own thoughts and our own hearts and minds. It's not all from bad angels. A lot of our thoughts and minds is just us making bad decisions on our own. But when they're especially bad, and when you can especially hear it, like it's like you don't want to, but you can't seem to stop but do the bad thing anyway, that sounds like bad angels to me. You know? Can we always resist temptation? You know what? We can. There's no temptation that we've ever had that we can't resist. We can always resist temptation. And God will always help us if we ask. And our angels will always be there to protect us should we try. We can always, always fight what's evil. Sometimes we don't, but we always can. It's a choice that you and I make. I bet you have a lot of questions about angels. And I can't wait to talk to you about them because they're so much fun, especially because they're so different from you and me. And I would love to sit around and talk about them. We can read some scriptures that they're involved in and see what kind of things they say and do. But regardless, know that you have a guardian angel watching over you who loves you and who's there to protect you and is trying in every way to help you to do what's right and true and good and protect you from everything that is evil and bad. Listen to him. Listen to your good angel. Listen when he calls to tell you to do the good and the right thing. And pay no attention whatsoever whenever you get those temptations to do things that are ill. I hope you have a beautiful week. God bless you, and I'll see you next week. Take care.